Can you fix bad SMP? The short answer is yes, and in this video I'm going to go through all the options to date that you can do to try to remove your SMP. The first thing you want to do, I've got my list right here, is avoid getting bad SMP done in the first place. I should have at some point a video on my channel which speaks about how to pick your SMP artist. If you follow some of the points in there, it's going to tell you how you can avoid any of this happening. The basic things such as paying too low of a price, inexperienced artists, maybe they haven't been doing it very long, or I don't want to get into that one because there's people that have been doing it longer and it is subjective as well. And going to a big company, seeing their work from their best artists, and then you're going to another artist, and then on the next session you go to another artist. So the lack of congruency with who is completing the work, that could be another way to avoid getting bad treatment, because it only takes one inexperienced artist to do a session on you and it messes it up a lot, and then you're going to have to get it removed. So those are ways that you can avoid it from the beginning. And not doing enough research in terms of, you saw an advert online, you like SMP, you like the look of it, you want to keep your hair short, you want to just get rid of that bald look and make it look like you've just shaved your head, but you've just literally saw an advert, you've only just heard about it today, you've went on, you booked in with the first person that you saw, you did no research. If you're watching this, obviously that's not you, but you need to do quite a lot of research. Follow someone on Instagram and watch them for 6 months before you actually commit to getting this done. It's easy to throw up a few pictures here and there, especially work that's not healed. It looks better than it does when it heals, because if you're inexperienced, your pressure is not going to be correct, and by the time it heals, some of them dots are going to disappear, some of them may look more like blowouts. So those inexperienced artists can actually make it look like they're really good, because they're showing work that is fresh on the day, straight after the treatment. A lot of work looks really good straight after, and the same work, by the time it comes back in a month's time or any kind of time has passed and that's healed, it can look like some of these horror stories, or it can just look really light. You've got to be really careful and be willing not to be in a rush. I know summer might be around the corner and you're like, I want this done ASAP, but it's worth not getting it done this summer and maybe getting it done next summer, so you can really dial in and watch somebody's work and be sure that that is somebody that you want working on your scalp. Also, listen to your SMP artist. If you've already done your research and you've got to the point where you want to book it in, they might tell you after you've had your 3 sessions, let's say, they say do not have any more sessions because I don't think you should go any darker. I've had people that have came to me, they've said, I want it to be darker, I want it to be darker. And I've had to just say to them, after this session, if you want to keep coming back, you're going to have to find somebody else to do this, because it's just not going to look right. And I don't think it will look right. And therefore, I don't want to give you any more sessions. So don't ask me for any more sessions until it's lightened up, until you need some more. Some people really do think that more is more natural, or more looks like you've got more hair, when it couldn't be further from the truth. If your SMP artist is really telling you no, don't get any more, then don't get any more. If you want a second opinion, you could ask somebody else, but then you're also crossing the line of, you've done all your research, you've picked this person, trust that person. Don't then go to another person just because that one's not giving you the right answer that you want, and ask them, because they may just turn around and be like, yeah, you can do another one, I'll do it. They might just need the money. So they'll happily do another session on you and make it a bit too dark. And once that's in, it's very hard to go back. And this is what we're going to talk about now. To get rid of SMP, you need laser tattoo removal. So you need to actually go under a laser and get zapped with a laser all across your SMP over a number of sessions. It is painful, it is expensive, it is time consuming, because you need to wait 6 to 8 weeks between each session. So it actually takes longer than SMP. That's why I put that bit at the start of avoiding getting bad SMP in the first place, because if you avoid it, you don't need to then do all this. But some of you watching this, you've already got bad work and you're looking for answers. So the number one answer is getting laser tattoo removal. The issues with that are it does really hurt. It hurts more than SMP. You know, some people say SMP hurts. Most people say it doesn't really hurt. It's just uncomfortable. And then a few say it doesn't hurt at all. But if you're somebody that feels like it's uncomfortable, laser tattoo removal is going to hurt. It's going to hurt. I'm going to put up a picture of somebody who came to me with really bad SMP. They had one session of laser tattoo removal and they just couldn't take the pain. And they said, I'm not taking any more of this pain. I'd rather just leave it alone and just accept that I've got this SMP rather than go through the pain of that. He came to me and said, look, if you can't do me another session to try and camouflage the SMP with like better SMP, I'm just gonna rock this. I'm just gonna keep it, the bad SMP. And I said, you know what, okay, you should have more laser sessions, but if you're just gonna keep it like that anyway, then I can help you camouflage it, but it's still not gonna look great. And he was like, yeah, well, I wanna try. So I did a session on him, as you can see here. And that's how we got it. So it's not the best. I would have really preferred him to get rid of it first, or at least lighten it up. But he was adamant that he didn't want to do any more laser. So here we are. And we did the best that we could do with a bad situation. Next is, so there is other techniques that you can use to try and get rid of bad SMP. When you see bad SMP, it looks blue in most cases, big blotches of blue ink. This is because they've gone too deep with the needle and or too dark with the ink, and it's caused a blowout. It looks too dark for the skin. If someone's very light skinned and they've put dark ink, that their skin can't carry that ink well and it just looks blue. They end up with a horrible, horrible, horrible scalp, and yeah, they need it removed. So other ways other than laser is something called saline. Saline removal is essentially just salt water and a bit of lemon. That's all it is. They put salt water and with a bit of lemon juice into the needle, and they just kind of do SMP over the top of your existing SMP. This is supposed to take the edge away and lighten up the pigment a lot more, helping it break down and take away some of that blue texture and just lighten it up. I have no experience with this. I see people are doing it and they seem to be getting results. This is something that you could look into, saline tattoo removal. If you don't want to go down the laser route, something for you to look at. Another thing is tattooing orange into the blue ink areas to try to color correct it. In color theory, on a wheel of colors, the opposite side of the spectrum to blue would be orange. So you need to use orange in your cartridge of your tattoo machine to basically do SMP little impressions into the existing blue impressions to try to neutralize that blue. Some people are having good results with this from what I can see, but it's not something widely adopted that loads of people are doing at the moment. If you're adamant you don't want laser, this could be a good option for you to help lighten it. So that you would probably want to search for terms like color correction removal. But the best option is doing laser. That is going to shoot light frequencies into the actual ink at the correct level, and it's going to, when it hits it, it disperses the ink from bigger particles into smaller particles, and then over time it's actually your immune system that is able to carry those particles away, and make it look more clear in that area because there's less ink, and over time your tattoo will be fully, if not partially, removed. But I know that's not an option for everyone due to pain, money, etc. Those are things for you to think about. Can you fix SMP without removal? The answer is it depends. If it's really light and it's been botched, it's bad work, it's too deep with the needles, it's big polka dot looking work, you can, like this one here, mix good work in and over the top of this bad work, and it can kind of blend and just seamlessly fall into the background of the SMP and be pretty undetectable. With the lighter ones, they are botched, but they're not overly botched and saturated. The dots are quite spread out. It leaves us a lot of room to work in between. So the majority of what you're seeing is good work, and in between it just has those botched bits of blue, but it's overall not too bad if it's light. When I say it's light, one, there's not too many dots or polka dots and blotches. Two, they haven't gone too dark with the ink. Now it does look a shade of blue. It doesn't look how SMP should look, but the ink hasn't been mixed too dark for the person's skin. So it's botched and it looks nasty, but it's still fairly light for botched work. The other scenario is obviously dark and botched, like this one. This one, you can help by trying to blend it with good work if there's enough space in between the dots, but a lot of the time there's not enough space, like this one, and it's just completely oversaturated and there's not really anything you can do, because you've got to imagine if you're just adding more ink on top of ink, like once that heals, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to mix with the abyss of ink that's already there. So unless it's light ink and then you're putting darker ink on top of it and it stands out, if it's really dark, you're just putting ink on top of that. There's not really much leeway there to create anything different. So once it heals, the very, very top layer of the skin will take away a lot of the ink, and what's left is the lower part that's just sat in there, but that's where the rest of the ink is that's botched. And because there's no space in between the dots, it just doesn't look any different. So the only way that can really work is if the ink isn't too dark to begin with. At least then those extra new dots of ink are darker and they do stand out over the top of the lighter but still migrated together ink. So you've got some options there. Sometimes people just don't want to do anything in terms of taking it away. They just are like, look, I've had some laser, it's traumatized me, I don't want any more laser, I really don't get on with the pain. Can you blend it out? And if there's some space, there's things that you can do, but you just need to be realistic. If this is you and you've got a really oversaturated scalp, there's only so much you can do to try and blend it. So really try looking at those other options to get it at least a little bit lighter before you commit to having a session of more SMP, more ink going on top of the ink, or at least in between, just because you don't want to overdo it. Because once you overdo it, you keep adding, now you've got more ink to take away, should that be bad. Now obviously you'd hope that the person that's correcting it isn't doing botched dots on you, but I've seen it where people go back to the same person. I don't know why you do that, but they go back to the same person. They'll say, no, come back, well, I'll fix it for you. They'll go back and botch it even more in an attempt to fix it, or they'll find somebody else who's also cheap that takes on the work and tries to fix it for you. If you're watching this and you've got botched SMP, the next person you go to better be one of the most expensive artists that you go to, because if they are taking it on, that means that it's possible that it can be fixed, or at least look better. If you're going to somebody that's cheap, again, maybe more than your last one, but still relatively cheap, you're not gonna get great results. You're already in a position where you need great results at this point. You can't afford to have any mediocre results. You just can't. So you need to go to someone who's gonna do a decent job and is confident that they can. And ideally have some pictures of stuff they've done before, which is exactly the same as what you're dealing with. The chances are, if they haven't got a photo of something that's exactly the same as your situation, and then you see the outcome and you're happy with it, chances are they either don't really know what they're doing and they're just looking for the money. So of course they'll be happy to have you, or what you're asking for doesn't exist. Like I said, with the oversaturation, there's no space to put any more dots, and they're just going to put some more dots, and by the time that heals in a month or so, it's just going to blend in with the rest of the dots, and it's just not going to look great. So that's the reality of it. SMP is great, but we're talking about SMP that's been botched, and that is not great. There's a very fine line between botched SMP and good SMP. Now, there's a lot of different artists that do good SMP in different ways, and it is subjective to the person looking at it. Some people like it to be really dark and dense, others like it to be a lot lighter, almost like you can't see anything. One and the other doesn't mean one's botched and the other one's not, and vice versa. But there is a level of work that is just botched, and it typically turns a blue color, and the dots are just huge, and they don't represent a hair follicle. They look a lot bigger than a hair follicle, like 3 to 4 times bigger than a hair follicle, or even more than that. Those are some tips. I hope that helps somebody that's in a predicament. If you've got any more questions or you want me to take a look at it, obviously you can DM me directly on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're seeing this, TikTok, and I'll take a look at it and I'll give you my honest opinion. If I think it can't be saved, then I'll say that. If I think it can, but it won't look great, I'll say that. I'll give you my honest opinion. That's the most I can do. It might result in us not working together, but that's fine, because I don't want to do something on you that looks worse, or it hasn't had an effect. It still looks the same. What's the point? I can go posting the picture saying it looks great straight after the treatment, but in reality it doesn't look that great after it's healed. So it's really pointless, and it's a waste of money for you. So I'm in the business of helping people feel more confident and look better. I don't just want to do it, take your money, and then you're still not feeling good. That doesn't help me in the long term. That just leaves you feeling underwhelmed. Like, I found this guy, he's talking about this and about that. I've went to him and, well, it kind of just looks the same 6 months later. So I might as well have just not done that. And you lose faith in SMP. And then overall, it just has a bad effect on the whole industry. I'm not in that business, but I can't say what other people will do. So hopefully you take heed of this information and you do what's best. And hopefully you haven't had it done yet and you avoid getting any more botched work completely, because you follow someone for an extended period of time and then you're more sure about who is doing your treatment.